Win the incredible Steigercraft 21DB Miami, powered by a Yamaha 200, in the ultimate season-long multiple-species subscriber-only fishing competition, the Fisherman's 2017 Dream Boat Fishing Challenge. Go to thefisherman.com and enter today. The fishing news is brought to you by Okuma and The Real Seat at 707 Union Avenue in Brielle, the first designer of offshore spreader bars in 1991. From trolling baits like ballyhoo to Joe Shoots trolling lures, gear up now for tuna, marlin, and mahi.
I'm Jim Hutchinson with the New Jersey, Delaware Bay edition of the Fisherman magazine here in this final week of August 2017. Hard at this time not to think about the folks in Texas and Louisiana. Our hearts and our prayers go out to you. In fact, it just makes me think just a few years back when we went through something similar with Sandy, right? Kind of tears at my heart and my gut a little bit. I'm outside my office in Little Lake Harbor where the water at that time was over this windowsill. In fact, it was up about as high as the doorknob. I remember when we first got back here after the storm, the floodwaters rearranged our entire living room, everything inside, and that's what these folks are going to be looking at, and probably not for several more weeks, right? But God bless the Cajun Navy. You know all about that, as the Washington Post reported earlier this week, quote, "In crises such as Harvey, you want outdoorsmen on your side." Ain't that right? A whole fleet of Louisiana hunters and fishermen packed up their boats, put them on trailers, pickup trucks, went out there to Texas to help with the saving of many, many lives, and I'm sure they're going to be very busy in Louisiana as well. Kudos too to Bass Pro Shops. The folks there offered up free boats to folks down there in Texas and Louisiana who are willing to help out with some of those efforts in the wake of Harvey. Now, folks looking for something they can do locally, I've got my eye out, been talking to a couple of people to find out what sportsmen can do locally in our region as far as lending support. As soon as I find something, I will share it with folks who watch the video and read the Fisherman magazine. Until then, I would recommend you donate to the Red Cross. They're the ones leading some of the efforts, whether you're doing that locally or nationally. But we'll continue to track, obviously, Harvey as it moves north-northeast, although as it's looking midweek, doesn't look like it's going to impact our weather until sometime after Labor Day, although Saturday coming up in this holiday weekend doesn't look so great. Of course, we also had a passing glance from a system to our south which went through, made things pretty rough offshore. Earlier in the week, double-digit swells to start the week. By Thursday, 4 to 7, Friday, 3 to 6, and Saturday and Sunday, 3 to 5. So, although, again, we'll be watching that NOAA forecast for the offshore bite as the next round of storms comes through. The big news inshore, of course, is the closing window of the 2017 fluke season in New Jersey. Frustrating, I know, very, very frustrating, especially now that some of these bigger fish have turned on. 12.6-pound fish on the down deep. Raritan Bay, but outside, out front of Sandy Hook, and yet another 12-pounder in at Shark River Inlet, reported at the Fisherman's Den in Belmar. This one for Nathan Vallajos. Again, another big doormat on the Ocean Explorer. Now, with all these big fish out off the structure, if it makes you feel any better, historically, in September, when we get those first tropical systems move through, it usually forces the fluke offshore. So when we're not targeting fluke next week, remember, they're gone anyway because of the tropical systems. Of course, we also have black sea bass closure in New Jersey this week. We won't open again until October, unless, of course, we get an act of Congress or an act of God, maybe an act of Governor Chris Christie. I'll tell you what, New Jersey Marine Fisheries Council meets on September 7th. That's Thursday, September 7th, 4 o'clock at the Stafford Township Municipal Building. That's on Bay Avenue in Manahawkin. The more voices, the bigger the turnout, the better any possible outcome. We'll be there. We'll be covering that meeting for the Fisherman magazine. We'll report back, but I would hope to see you there. Come out there and voice some of your opinions as we lose fluke and sea bass for the year. Until then, of course, our boats keep sailing and our fishermen keep fishing along the Jersey shore. Our quick rundown here, central North Jersey coast, the fleet from Raritan Bayshore down to Belmar and Brielle, looking at some of those inshore porgies. I mean, look at that, porgies in sight of land aboard the Last Lady. If you want to get into some of that porgy fishing, get onto it now while we've got some of those slab-sided hubcaps out there. Better reports of weakfish for folks who are targeting weakfish. That's the ticket, folks, is getting out and targeting them. Staten Island's Art Waldhelm was out earlier this week, and he's been finding some weakfish up there on the Raritan Bay. From Manasquan to from Manasquan to Barnegat into Absecon, and even farther south, it's the lumps and ridges for some of those albies. Some big ones too, big false albacore on the big Jamaica. These guys are also catching small blues, some bonito, and Spanish mackerel as well. I know the Jamaica's been out there chumming and drifting some baits in and also jigging. So definitely worth a look. If you go farther south, the Miss Chris and many of the Cape May County fleet, they're doing much the same. Also throwing some triggerfish into the mix as well. Tasty triggerfish. In fact, going across the Delaware Bay into Lewis Harbor, Jay and Morgan Way of Pennsylvania, they had a couple of huge triggers among 9 of them. 9 total of these triggerfish at the inner wall down there in Lewis Harbor. They were using sand crabs and clam as well out of Lewis Harbor Marina. Now, speaking of Delaware, fluke and sea bass are open all the time. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the federal law for you guys, is there? Captain Brett Wiest and the Maker's Mark team, they just scored probably the largest fluke tournament payout I've ever heard, $100,000 in the Delaware Flounder Pounder. We're going to have to find out about this and really promote this next year. A heck of a tournament, 11.4 pounds, but $100,000. That's like $8,700 a pound. If you think that's pricey, how about this one? $1.11 million for Captain Walt Harmstead and the crew of Larry Hess's Going In Deep. For the Mid-Atlantic last week, they won 2 top divisions with a 680-pound blue marlin and a 184-pound yellowfin. That's a true Allison. Same day, the same trip, same guys. What a great catch. And for those of you who are curious, that's what $500,000 of sushi looks like. Thanks for sharing, Nick. No, not the fish, the photo. Best bet for the surf folks this week, pick up our September edition of the Fisherman magazine. It's out on newsstands right now. You subscribers, you have it in your hands. Look for that cover of Crazy Al. Crazy Al will be our guest at the surf show in Long Island coming up in just a couple of weeks. That's where you can get one of these brand new Fisherman hats. All the details are in that magazine. We do have some small stripers, primarily at night, along the docks, sod banks, especially on higher water. You can get more on all that bite from the Surf and Shore in Nick Honicheski's Beach Talk. That's in our September edition as well. So be sure to pick it up, find all the details there. Enjoy the weekend. Pack that stand-up freezer with as many fluke as you can possibly get it. And we'll see you here again next week at thefisherman.com.
Win the incredible Steigercraft 21DB Miami, powered by a Yamaha 200, in the ultimate season-long multiple-species subscriber-only fishing competition, the Fisherman's 2017 Dream Boat Fishing Challenge. Go to thefisherman.com and enter today.